Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Light it up, pedal to the metal. We're gonna take it to a whole nother level tonight. Alright, a whole nother level.
Okay, I am here in Hawaii. We've done our little vlog series where we have gone through what we've been up to in chunks of time. This video is a bit different. I'm going to talk you through my bike that I will be racing on the Big Island in 2 days' time. A little bit of background, I've had this bike since January 2023, and ever since then there's been evolutions to this bike in order to get it to the spec and functionality that I've got today. So a lot of the decisions I've made on upgrades, kit, equipment, etc. over the last almost 2 years have been about how do I get the fastest bike set up for me in Kona. Obviously in that time things have evolved and other products have come out as well, so always had that in the back of my mind when I've made certain decisions. So let's get started. First of all, as you'll kind of notice, it is a Speed Concept Trek frame. Now I went for this as I had a couple of options by partnering with my local bike store, Harpenden Cycles. They had both Trek and Scott bikes available, and I went for the Trek because it had been one of the bikes in the disc brake version that was the latter in the kind of bike world to the market, and by that I believe they kind of nailed it first time round. So a lot of the clunkiness and difficulties with disc brakes on TT bikes in the early days I believe were bottomed out by some other brands, and Trek held off a little bit, partly because their Speed Concept in a rim brake version was a pretty good bike to start with, and they did a lot of R&D to get this bike right first time. And I believe you can see that now by the fact that they haven't really updated the bike since 2022 when it first came out. We built the bike from scratch. By that I mean I just bought the frame, and because I knew I was going to change so much on the bike, we did the group set, base bar, handlebars, seat post, all that sort of stuff separately, and kind of built the bike up from there. It is a size small. I was on the cusp of a small/medium. I'm 174 centimeters in height, but that's a question I've been asked a few times in terms of what size do I ride. So that's the bike. The group set we went for, albeit pretty much from day one of having this bike, I've always ridden it as a one by. So for the group set, we've got a SRAM 12-speed rear derailleur, and I've got a 1033 cassette on the back here. This is pretty much the cassette I've used since owning this bike. I did consider changing this for Kona, but I found that this worked really well. I have a 56 1x drag to zero chainring. I do have a 54 and I did bring it with me in case I thought the 56 might be a bit big, but nothing out here in Kona apart from up Palani is very steep, so I've managed fine on the climbs with that. It does have a SRAM Quark power meter, and I've got SRAM Red 165, and these are the new E1 cranks. This is a relatively new change for me. I've been riding 170 for most of my life, but after some wind tunnel testing and some changes I wanted to make to my overall position, the 165 cranks were the thing that always came up in conversations with bike fitters and wind tunnel. The E1 cranks, I believe, have only just come out in the UK, so I managed to grab hold of a pair of these from the States and have them shipped to the UK so I could get them on the bike, and I've ridden with these since August time to give myself a couple of months to adjust. Currently we've got Garmin single-sided power pedals on it. Now this is a change I've made in Kona because my Quark power meter for some reason or another is reading 0 watts, and I am lucky enough that Amy brought her power pedals with her for the bike that she rented out here. So we've popped those on to give me a reference point for the race, but I did have and do use the Look Keo blade pedal, so not a pedal-based power system, but an aero pedal. I did move away from using speed play pedals on this bike, and I found that the Look pedals gave me a much better grip and I could apply the power better through the pedal, and I certainly started to find myself riding better since that. We've also got the SRAM Red brakes and SRAM rotors. I do have a 140 on the front and a 160 on the rear, by all accounts for some marginal aero gains. Obviously when you're racing your bike full gas, you don't use your brakes an awful lot, and I certainly didn't need the extra braking power a slightly larger rotor on the front gives you. Moving on to the wheels. So I am running the Parcours Chrono wheel set. Obviously in Kona you're not allowed a disc wheel. It's a 75mm rear and a 68mm front. Both are with 28mm tyres, although the rear is a Continental TT tubeless 28mm tyre, and the front is this new Continental Aero 111 tyre, which I believe is 26 or 29mm. You can get that tyre. It comes up and looks very similar to a 28 on the wheel, and that is the tyre that Dov from Parcours in terms of get the 29 on these Parcours rims, because they are designed to work with a wider tyre, both for rolling resistance but also aerodynamics with the interface between the tyre and the rim. These are fantastic wheels. I've ridden Parcours wheels now for about 5 years. These are a team edition, so they have ceramic bearings, and we're lucky enough to have like a bolt gun grey hub to them, and the decals are slightly unique. They say team edition on them. So this year I have been partnered with them and been part of their sort of amateur team, but I've had many versions of the Parcours wheels over the years, and I've still got some training wheels and whatnot that I use on my various bikes. Working up to the front end then, I have, this is the, I suppose we'd call it version 1 of the Wattshop front end. They have brought out a slightly updated cockpit now, but I have single-sided armrests with the Wattshop bottle between the arms mount. Also up the front end here, so the Wattshop bars, but we've got angled spacers, and this year they've brought out an adapter that goes straight into the Trek base bar. They've done this now for a few different models of bikes, the most common ones, and I've got it raised by 15mm, so they then do 5mm spacers. This is something we tested in the wind tunnel a few months ago, so I did traditionally have this slammed as far down as I could and had the old way of mounting to the base bar on the Trek, which was with like a what do they call it? It was just a base plate that you could move it forward and back. By taking all that out, it's a hell of a lot neater, particularly now I don't have any wires in here, and we could chuck in 15mm of space here. You can come up a lot higher. I could come up 50mm if I really wanted to, but since I've come up a little bit here and I've brought my saddle forward a little bit, I do feel like I have opened my hip angle up a little bit better, and we'll find out on race day if that helps me run off the bike a bit better. And the base bar, something I did change relatively recently is the connectors that go on the end of the bar. These now take the SRAM Axis wireless blips. So I did have the buttons which were then cabled. By having these blips, it means that this front end bit is completely wireless, which has allowed me to change it and tinker with it with relative ease. But also these have been really useful because I had sort of pole-like ones with the buttons on the end for most of the time, but these have this little lip, and I found it really useful to grip onto and almost pull up against the bike, particularly in winds, etc., and found them a lot more comfortable for where my hands naturally sit. We have a Garmin mounted. I think it's a 130. It's the smallest Garmin they do. It doesn't really have maps. It's a black and white screen. I did have a nice fancy Garmin at the start of the year, but I lost it mid-race, and I've basically replaced it with this cheap and cheerful one. It's actually brilliant in terms of what it does, what it needs. If I did need to do any fancy routing, etc., it would be a bit rubbish, but during a race it's great. You can have 4 or 5 data screens on it and see those with no issues, and the battery life seems to be brilliant on it because it's not powering coloured screens and everything else that they do. On the base bar, I do have the blips, so those are wired into the box that's underneath the headset here. I did think about changing those to wireless blips as well, but I kind of wanted to keep a little bit of wired there so that if these fail, I still have the ability to change my gears or not risk that point of failure. And although the bar tape has already started to look a bit old, I did put some bright pink bar tape, lizard skin bar tape on before coming out, partly because my bike is so black when it's in transition, in a very busy Kona transition, I wanted something to be able to spot it as I run down an aisle, for example. The Trek has built-in storage here, so up here I will keep all my sweets and possibly a few gels. This is the Trek standard aero bottle. It holds about 600 ml. I will put some electrolytes in there. I use a very concentrated mix. In here there is a space to put spares, and there is a flap that goes on there, but I don't use it at all. What I do is put a tube and a set of tyre levers in a sock and hide that in the frame there, and hope to never need or use it. And I've just found that a bit more useful than actually the lid that goes on there. The seat tube is obviously Trek one and goes with that. This is also a Bontrager Hilo Pro carbon saddle, which does come with the bike, although I bought it separately, obviously, as I bought the frame. I've never had mega issues with it. I do think saddles are very individual, and you don't know what will suit you and what not. But from the ISM I rode to this, I haven't noticed a huge amount of difference. And last but not least, at the back of the bike here, for most Ironmans, I've run this X-Lab Aero pouch, partly because I can have easy accessible spares here. So a quick Dyna plug kit, a CO2 and a spare SRAM battery, just in case I have issues with that, I keep in there, and that sort of will cover me then for most things that could go wrong. And it's easy to access, and it also keeps obviously a bottle in it, and I've never ever lost anything in here. If anything, it's quite hard to pull this bottle out, and I only ever take the bottle and replace it up front once I've completely finished this one. And that is pretty much the bike. Cool. I think the last thing to do, as with any bike build video, is just do a quick free hub sound check. So let's see. Lovely jobbly. So that is my Trek Speed concept. This is the bike I am hoping to ride very quick on the Queen K and the Ironman bike course this weekend. Let's see what happens. If you like this video and you want to see more like this, we've done a few bike build videos before. Drop me a comment, drop me a like and a subscribe, and see you on the other side.